All right, Monday morning, and we have a language lesson. And so open up your books to language lesson 1. We're starting on our last book. Can you believe this? So after we finish this book in language, we were done with language for the year. So let's get started and knock this book out. So in this book, we're going to do the 6 steps of memorizing and memorize poems. So today we're going to review the 6 steps that we learned earlier this year. But before we do that, we're going to remember where rhyming words are usually found, and rhyming words are usually found at the end of a poem. A poet is the person who writes a poem, and their name goes at the end of the poem. So in the orange box on page number 1 on the top is a box called memorizing. So let's remember the 6 steps of memorizing. The first one is understand what you are memorizing. So read through it, make sure you know what it means, understand it. The second step is divide it into parts. That helps me so much to divide it into chunks. We did that in our Bible memory with learning a couple verses a day and then highlighting them. It's dividing them into chunks. It didn't divide them into parts. The third one is repeat, repeat, repeat. You have to keep it going in your mind and read it over and over, speak it over and over and over so that you remember it. The fourth one is picture it in your mind. So after you repeat it and repeat it and repeat it as you read it, you can start to picture in your mind where you are, right? The fifth part is say it to somebody. And the 6th step is review it each day for a week, and you will not forget it for a very long time. So today we're going to read this poem called Mr. Nobody, and you're going to answer the questions about the poem, but I'm going to read the poem for you. This is the poem that we're going to start memorizing. In the 6th line of the 2nd verse, there's this word called pretty. It's P-R-I-T-H-E-E. And it's an old-fashioned word that would mean I pray thee. It's like a request or a wish. I pray thee. It's kind of like asking a request of somebody. So pray thee means I pray thee. It just put together into one word. So I will read this poem for you, and you can listen and try to understand it, which is the first step. The poem is called Mr. Nobody. I know a funny little man, as quiet as a mouse, who does the mischief that is done in everybody's house. There's no one who ever sees his face, and yet we all agree that every plate we break was cracked by Mr. Nobody. 'Tis he who always tears our books, who leaves the door ajar. He pulls the buttons from our shirts and scatters pins afar. That squeaking door will always squeak, for pretty, don't you see, we leave the oiling to be done by Mr. Nobody. The finger marks upon the door by none of us were made. We never leave the blinds unclosed to let the curtains fade. The ink we never spill, the boots that lying round you see, are not our boots, they all belong to Mr. Nobody. The author is unknown. So, is Mr. Nobody a real person? Not exactly. In this poem, Mr. Nobody is the person who does not do his chores, is the person that everybody blames. I didn't do that. Whose boots are those? They're not mine, right? So it's Mr. Nobody. We blame it on that we just don't take the blame for ourselves. We're it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. So that's Mr. Nobody's fault, right? So every plate that breaks in the house, I didn't do it, it's Mr. Nobody, right? That's what the poem is about. How everything that we blame is on Mr. Nobody, and that we don't take it for ourselves. We don't acknowledge that we do things. So that's what the poem is about. And so you're going to start memorizing the first 4 lines today in this poem. I remember memorizing this when I was in 3rd grade. It's been a long time, so I'm pretty bad at saying it now, but yeah, memorized it when I was little. So you guys can go ahead and start that. For penmanship this book, we're going to have like a sign for each day. So today this sign is a no smoking sign, and it explains a little bit about why smoking is bad. And so you're going to see a sign and then write something about it. So that's in the back of the book for penmanship. It should be pretty fun. So that is your lesson for today, and have a fantastic Monday.